Chrysler in the 1980s was like a man clinging to a pub bar stool after last orders, barely alive, wobbling and about to fall over. But then, with a combination of corporate bailouts, Iacocca's charm and a new minivan that would redefine family motoring, the company somehow staggered back onto its feet. By the middle of the decade, Chrysler wasn't just surviving, it was swaggering. They bought AMC, Jeep, even Lamborghini, and in the middle of all of that, they cooked up a few utterly mad concept cars. One of the strangest and most criminally forgotten was the 1988 Dodge Intrepid concept, not to be confused with the later and frankly tedious Dodge Intrepid sedan of the 1990s. This car was something else entirely. It was mid-engined, turbocharged, futuristic, and most importantly, it laid the foundations for two proper icons of the following decade, the Dodge Stealth and the Mitsubishi 3000 GT. Yes, believe it or not, the Japanese techno-wizardry of the 3000 GT and the stealth fighter styling of the Dodge Twin can be traced back to a weird red and silver wedge Dodge rolled out onto the show stand in Detroit. Now, this wasn't Chrysler's first flirtation with making a mid-engined exotic. I mean, just 2 years earlier, they had unveiled the M4S, a slippery prototype that looked like something from Blade Runner, and cool fact, it later starred in The Wraith. The M4S was a proper moonshot, nearly 200 miles per hour, 440 horsepower, and no chance whatsoever of entering production. The Intrepid, though, was different. This wasn't a fantasy racer for Hollywood. This was Chrysler showing that it could make a sleek, low-slung sports car that looked futuristic but was also dangerously close to being real. Unlike the M4S, the Intrepid had things like conventional doors, functional glass, and an actual interior with leather, gauges, and buttons. In short, it looked like something you might actually drive rather than just drool over in a brochure. The paint scheme was pure 80s excess, two-tone candy red with silver, kind of like a can of Coke. Above it all sat a glass canopy roof that gave the thing a fighter jet vibe. If you squinted, you could imagine Tom Cruise in aviators climbing into one between missions in Top Gun. Pop the rear lid and instead of finding a thumping V8 or some Lamborghini V12, I mean remember Chrysler owned Lamborghini at this time, you got a 2.2 litre 4-cylinder. Yes, really, but before you dismiss it as a lawnmower powertrain, this was the fabled Turbo 3 engine, complete with a Lotus designed 16-valve head. In concept form, it made 225 horsepower, which in 1987 was enough to frighten most sports cars into submission. This was an engine that would go on to power the Dodge Spirit RT and Daytona IROC RT, the high water mark of Chrysler's turbocharged 4-cylinder lunacy. Those cars are cult classics now, but in the Intrepid, the engine was a sign that Chrysler wasn't just dreaming, it was testing the hardware it would later actually use. It was mid-mounted too, which meant Dodge engineers had gone full Ferrari on the layout. The 5-speed manual gearbox sat behind it, driving the rear wheels. So yes, for a brief shining moment in the 80s, Dodge built a turbocharged, mid-engine sports car. But the Intrepid wasn't entirely clean sheet. It was based on a shortened version of the G-body platform that underpinned the Dodge Daytona. But that was no bad thing. The wheelbase was cut down to 95.4 inches, and at just 45.6 inches tall, the Intrepid sat lower than most contemporary supercars. Independent suspension on all four corners gave it a level of sophistication you rarely saw in American cars of the time, while staggered wheels with 16s at the front and 17s at the back hinted that Dodge was serious about giving it handling to match the looks, and even the tires were directional. Now the Dodge press release at the time called it a concept for tomorrow's Dodge. Nobody realized then just how true that was. Look closely at the Intrepid and you can see the production Dodge Stealth hiding under the skin. The front fascia with its pop-up headlights, wide rectangular lamps and slim triangular turn signals is almost identical. The rear end, with its flat deck lid and inset lights, is practically a template for the Stealth. Even the scalloped sides and air intakes were carried forward, albeit watered down slightly for production. When the Stealth debuted in 1990, everyone assumed it was Mitsubishi doing the heavy lifting and Dodge just slapping badges on. But in truth, a lot of the styling cues came straight from the Intrepid. Mitsubishi meanwhile unveiled their HSX concept in 1989, which was basically a thinly disguised 3000 GT. But that was 2 years after Dodge had already shown the Intrepid. So if anything, Chrysler influenced Mitsubishi just as much as the other way around. And this is where things get really interesting. The Dodge Stealth and Mitsubishi 3000 GT were the result of Diamond Star Motors, Chrysler's partnership with Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi brought the hardware, V6 engines, optional twin turbos, all-wheel drive, four-wheel steering, even active aerodynamics. Then Dodge brought the styling cues and the American market presence. Without the Intrepid concept, it's entirely possible the Stealth would have looked like a rebadged Mitsubishi with zero personality. Instead, it had a design language all of its own, one that could trace a direct line back to Dodge's 1987 show car. The Intrepid may not have been fast enough to scare a Ferrari Testarossa in period, but it helped give birth to a car that in twin-turbo form absolutely could. The tragedy of the Intrepid though is that it was overshadowed. The 1987 Detroit Auto Show was absolutely packed with wild concepts. Oldsmobile had the Aerotech, a streamlined bullet that would go on to break records. General Motors was showing off tech-laden visions of the future, and against that backdrop the Intrepid didn't quite grab the headlines. And then, like so many concept cars, it simply disappeared. Dodge doesn't know what happened to it, which usually means one thing: it was crushed. It's a depressing thought, because if any concept deserved to be saved, it was this one. Why do I say this? Well, the Dodge Intrepid concept is a footnote in history, but it shouldn't be. It's a reminder that Chrysler, even when it was on shaky financial ground, wasn't afraid to take risks. It wasn't afraid to build a mid-engine car with an advanced 4-cylinder engine and show it off alongside the world's best. More importantly, it proves that the Dodge Stealth and Mitsubishi 3000 GT didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were the product of years of cross-pollination, ideas flowing back and forth between Detroit and Tokyo. The Intrepid was part of the DNA, a stepping stone on the way to two of the most high-tech, complicated and underrated sports cars of the 1990s. And let's be honest, wouldn't you rather see a red and silver mid-engine Dodge on a show stand than yet another crossover concept with a plastic interior and a marketing slogan? Of course you would. The Intrepid deserves to be remembered not just as a forgotten concept, but as the Dodge that secretly fathered a pair of legends. And for a company that nearly collapsed a few years earlier, that's not bad going. But at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys think of this car and its story. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now if you guys did like this video, you'll most probably enjoy some other stuff, so just go to my channel, see if there's someone else to like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers,